So today I'm going to be talking to you guys about the truth around digital PR campaigns. And I want to start with saying something. We've got a huge problem. So here is what Twitter has to say about our digital PR campaigns. Digital PR is getting ridiculous. We're attention seeking. And finally, and probably the most prominent to me, the digital PR community shouldn't feel pressured to post their best work and highlights all the time. Now, you know what? I'm really guilty of this too. And you can see here on Twitter at the end of 2017, we were all probably ecstatic at the fact we'd completed another year. We're moving off into Christmas, and I take to Twitter because I'm so proud of the team and talk about how many pieces of coverage we've got. I then carry that through into 2018. I talk about some of our campaigns, Travel Supermarket in particular. I start sharing pieces of coverage from the likes of Business Insider and Mail Online. Absolutely love fire emojis by all accounts. And then I take this forward again. And you can see how much I'm tweeting about how proud I am with the campaigns that we've launched, the team, who's doing what, and stuff like that. And it didn't stop there. This time last year, I spoke in front of 1,500 people at MozCon and was walking people through some of the most successful campaigns that we've ever done as an industry, or done within the industry as an agency. So this one here, Mark touched upon this and some of the kind of detective work that he'd done for Content Hubble. It got 468 pieces of coverage and 324 linking domains. This one here for Travel Supermarket, we were nominated for a couple of awards, 150 pieces of coverage and 66 linking domains. And this one here, and this one is quite close to my heart because I think it was the one that we called Aira viral. We got 68 pieces of coverage and 45 linking domains. Now, here is one of those successful campaigns mapped on a graph. You can see in that month alone, the links, coverage and mentions that we secured is great. You know, it's up at nearly 70. But this is what that looks like in context. You can see we have an absolute stormer of a month, and then things start to really topple off. And that's where those difficult clients come in. And those difficult client conversations, come in. And there's one thing that I just want to reiterate is that I absolutely was not talking about that on Twitter at that point. I wasn't talking about the hardships. And that's me not really showing you the full picture. So today, I really want to talk you through the full picture and what the realities and the truth about digital PR really is. So the full picture essentially covers three pillars within creative campaigns. We've got the huge wins, the ones that go off and get hundreds, if not thousands of links. We've got the ones in the middle, the steady performers that sit, 10, 20 links. And then we've got the huge fails, the ones that absolutely bomb and we have to have those really challenging conversations around and have to pick ourselves back up off the floor. Here is what that looks like in reality. So the huge wins are at the left of that, and we probably only have like one in 3 or 4 campaigns that really go up and go viral. We've got a huge amount of steady performers in the middle, and then we've got the fails, which are hopefully few and far between. But here's how we talk about those campaigns on Twitter, and here's what we share. We talk about the wins, we talk about all the successes, we talk about the fact that campaigns have gone off and got hundreds of links and where they've got them and stuff like that. That doesn't quite correlate with the work that we're actually doing. And we can also see that we're not really talking about the steady performers as much. And we might talk about some of those fails a little bit more than those steady performers. So the challenge that we've got with that is that we're giving the impression that we don't have campaign fails. And I absolutely have experienced them. And I'm sure a number of you on the line today definitely have as well. And because we're giving that impression, we're putting too much pressure on ourselves and newbies in the industry. Pressure's a good thing, right? We need a little bit of that there because we need to have high quality work and we need to have campaigns that go out and get the job done. But if we have too much pressure, then that can become quite negative and have a detrimental impact. As an industry, if we're constantly talking about these wins and not necessarily the steady performers and the fails, we're starting to normalise the idea that every campaign that we launch has to go out and get 100+ links as well. And that just isn't possible with some of the niches we work in, some of the clients that we work for, and the brands as well. Now, that feeds into something a little bit bigger and a little bit more challenging, that if we're setting this example, we then start to set unrealistic KPIs and expectations. So in the sales process, you might start getting difficult questions around, okay, well, I saw you did this for this client, I want a replica of that, but the client's not quite recognizing that it's a different space, a different industry, and you've got challenges on that front. We're also making others think that 5, 10 or 20 links can't be effective, and we know that they can, because if they're high quality, they're relevant, and you've got them into something like a product page, which can be quite challenging, then you know that that's going to have a successful impact on SEO. We know ultimately that steady performers can be effective, and I just want to champion celebrating them a little bit more and learning from them a bit more than just constantly focusing on the huge wins all the time, which I have definitely been guilty of. So as an industry, I think we can do better. As Lisa said earlier, you know, our community is so good for sharing. We lift each other up, we champion each other's campaigns. Let's talk about these steady performers and fails just a little bit more so that we can go a level deeper with our learning. Now, why do we focus on the wins? Well, we've got a bit of a rinse and repeat kind of mentality and attitude as well. So I want to take you back to our first Aira viral campaign. And Mark will know this one well. I was working with him on this with Mark and Paddy. I hadn't been at Aira that long. I don't actually think either of them liked the idea, and I was starting to take it quite personally. I had to really pitch it to get across the line. So this was for Voucher Cloud. It ended up being my baby. We launched this, the world's busiest countries, using World Health Organization data. Launched it in January, a time where it's supposed to be dry January and we weren't drinking. I'll hold my hands up and say that I probably drink more in January because of the doom and gloom. So we tried to tap into that a little bit more, and we tried to go against the norm. Now, you're probably looking at those numbers going 68 pieces of coverage and 45 linking domains. That's not viral, but for us it was Aira viral because it was the first campaign that really started to get traction on its own. And I remember coming into the office the next day and kind of messaging Mark and Paddy and thinking, look, it's on the Star, it's on the Express and stuff like that. And you know, it was really great. It was a huge win for me and the team. So it really, though, this is where we started to focus on these wins and only the wins. So guess how many interactive maps we launched that year for one client and one client alone, because we knew that they got links. 12 out of 18 campaigns were maps. Now, going back to that, I'm a bit shocked that I even signed that off and we let that go through the net. But you do that because you need to get consistent links in through the door for clients. And again, that ties into my pillars. You know, we were focusing on those huge wins, not necessarily thinking about the steady performers or trying to learn from those fails. And that sounds really familiar, right? The huge wins and focusing in on them. And we start to see trends in our industry. So for us at that point, it was interactive maps. We've then seen industry indexes come through. So for us, we did a taxi price index, and other agencies have done indexes. We've seen the best jobs campaigns come through. We've seen the brain teasers. We are guilty of when something works, we absolutely rinse and repeat. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, right? Because we have KPIs that we have to go and hit. But at the same time, we have to focus on what hasn't gone right so that we can do better. So again, that ties into my overall challenge here. We're not showing the full picture, and we really, really need to be doing that. So let's talk about failure and really start to drill into this truth around digital PR. Now, for me, the first step in kind of telling the full picture here is talking about failure. And this is a little bit difficult because, you know, we're not in a room, but I still wanted to include it because who's had a campaign fail? You can see me. I've had a campaign absolutely bomb, and it hurts. It's painful. Now, this one here is the one that really sticks close to home, and I know it really does for Mark as well, because it's another one we were working on together. Mark and I were absolutely sold by the concept of this idea and the format. Essentially, you land on it, you hit the watch it disappear button, and it tells you and shows you, in comparison to the Empire State Building, that oil drum depletes, and it shows you how quickly the USA is going to be going through their oil reserves in 2016 if we don't start doing something about it. Now, there's more context to this piece. I hadn't got out of my probation yet. I'd made the transition, and quite a hard transition from traditional PR into digital. I barely knew what a link was at this point, but you know what? I'm a hungry PR. I'm going to go out and get it. I'm going to prove to the world at this point I can get links for this awesome content piece. And that's what I did. Now, I launched it, and the Daily Mirror came straight back to me and asked where I'd been for the last 4 years. Pretty high up at the Daily Mirror as well, this chap was. He was one of the editors there at the time. I was absolutely flabbergasted that I got a reply like this, and he was questioning the data, and it started to knock my confidence. But this wasn't the only thing that was happening at that point. The first launch, it got 0 links. But why? What was actually going on? It had nothing to do with my data. That was simply his opinion. We launched our campaign just before this sharp peak, and it was literally 24 hours before as well. And it was because of this guy. He took and won the US presidential election. That was the week of his inauguration. And I thought it was a brilliant idea at the time to take this nice, shiny campaign out to US press. What was I thinking? It was absolutely not wise of me as a PR to try and take out a campaign to US press during an election. I don't know what I was thinking. I probably had my ego a little bit too high at that point. Now, I kept that one quiet on Twitter, didn't I? You didn't see me tweeting about that and the fact that I was probably going home and crying about it to my boyfriend at the time, worrying if I was going to pass probation. But thankfully, we let the dust settle. We went out again, and I think it's sitting on 20 to 25 links now, which isn't that bad considering we had 0. The other thing I want to reiterate is that failures really do come in all shapes and sizes as well. Let's take this map here. And again, this is a format that some of you in the conference today will be quite familiar with. These maps perform really well from a link building perspective, and we did this for an automotive company. It reveals the world's top selling car model in every country. There's a lot going on with this map, but essentially the good thing about it is it lets you go out to all of the different kinds of country-specific press and stuff like that. These maps are so difficult to QA. Our designers hate them, and every time we even talk about doing one now, there's a slight nervousness and hesitancy around it. And you can see that when I zoom into this piece here, you can just see how many different kind of, you know, brand car names and country-specific names that we had to QA. But can you spot the problem on this? Mark, you might be able to. You've probably with your BDI. I'll highlight it for you. This is the main problem. Rather than Hong Kong, we put Honk Kong. Now, that probably wouldn't have been the end of the world had this piece not gone on the client's site and had we not launched it. So we took this out to press. Luckily that this was the only piece of coverage secured, and hey, you know what, we managed to get a link even with that typo in there, but we were absolutely grilled in the comments. And Laura, the senior content strategist at the time, I remember coming into work the following morning, going into the boardroom with her. She was almost in tears and hysterics over this piece. But luckily we had a client that was very understanding, and we managed to swap things around, do all of our follow-ups, and it performed really well. I think in the end it got kind of 80 links or so. So yeah, that was a pretty big fail on my part. And again, Hong Kong will always be a country that forever haunts me, and I'm really nervous about doing these maps now too. So failures don't stop there. They're campaign failures, right? But actually, we as teams working within agencies, working in-house, who's had to report on a campaign fail? I have, again, I've been in that position, and it's not the nicest one to be in. Here's an example of that from last year. So, lovely client, he's one of our favourite clients. What's really frustrating about this is that he's a genuinely nice guy as well. So he says, "Hi Shannon, how are you? Good weekend. I just want to get your view on how January unfolded, as it was below standards on a link building front." So firstly, I'm peeved because he's beat me to the punch, right? He's beat me and the team to the punch. I haven't gone to him with what's gone on. He's come to me, which is really, really gutting. But we all know what it's like to receive emails like this, and it's no fun. We don't like to be on the receiving end of them. Who's had to pull their team through a campaign fail? Again, I have. A number of us kind of today will resonate with this side of things as well. And you can see here, this is the reality of running a digital PR team with nearly 20 people now. This is a quick Slack message where one of our account managers is again trying to communicate to the client that we're trying to get things back on track. We're trying to do our best to secure links. And I'm trying to encourage them and lift them up and go, well done for pushing the team on this. Like, we're doing a great job. We're getting through it. It's going to be fine. Because after kind of pivoting the campaign, we started to get some warm leads in, which is super, super encouraging. We've then got Aira, our digital PR team lead, that comes in and goes, Livy, I've got your back on this. We're kind of, the conversation that ensued after that was the plan of action and how we were taking out these new angles. And again, you know what? It works. We got through it. But the thing that I want to reiterate here is that when you are in those deep, dark spots and you're wondering how your campaign is going to get back on track, and you've got clients and stakeholders asking you what's going on, you really do have to have each other's backs through thick and thin to get out of that. And as long as your team and people around you know that you're in that situation with them, you will get through it. And because really it hurts, it really hurts. And when your campaigns don't go, especially, you know, if you're the one that's championed them and has fought them through the ideation process and you really feel like something is there. But unfortunately, that is the truth about digital PR, right? Sometimes things do hurt, sometimes things don't go to plan, and it's just the reality of what we do. So what is normal then when it comes to campaigns? Now, this is the State of Link Building report. Paddy championed and led this as a kind of report and survey that we undertook this year. We asked 300 marketers all around the world, content marketers, digital PRs, heads of marketing that, you know, were controlling budgets and stuff like that, their views on link building, their thoughts around, you know, where they were spending money, the tactics they were using and stuff like that. And this is one of the most interesting questions. If you haven't kind of gone and seen the report itself, I just want to walk you through some of the results to really kind of reiterate what normal is. So we asked people, have you ever had a campaign that received the following number of links? And the highest percentage of people replied with 1 to 9 links. We've then got in position 2, 55% of people saying that their campaigns usually get somewhere between 10 and 19. And then finally, 46% of people get somewhere between 20 and 39. Now, that's not viral. That's, that really isn't. And actually, this falls into that steady performers category where we know that, those kind of links and those campaigns, if they're high quality, they do shift the needle. Same question, point number 5 here in the report. Have you ever had a campaign that received the following number of links? 28% of people said that they had experienced a campaign that had completely fallen on its knees and got 0. So I'm going to be honest, I'm a little bit suspicious that only, a third experienced 0 links. I can recollect a good couple of campaigns that are potentially sitting on 0 from a few years ago. Luckily now we've got some processes that I'm going to talk you through towards the end of this deck to get things back on track. But hey ho, that was the survey response. And so just to reiterate that point, despite what Twitter can sometimes show, not every single campaign that we're doing or talking about is going viral. And the research does show that the majority are getting between 1 to 20 links, and that is good. That's really, really good. If you can go home and say that they're on brand links, they're relevant, they're from high quality publications, and you can then start to track their success and what that has in terms of an impact on kind of traffic and rankings, be really, really proud of yourselves. So what is normal then for Aira? And I kind of want to air our dirty laundry a little bit. So in a 12-month period, we launched 138 campaigns. That generated around 5,000 pieces of coverage and 2,381 followed links. Now that gives us an average of 17 links, right, per campaign. There's nothing viral about that. But we can map and attribute some of these campaign successes back to kind of real world SEO KPIs around traffic, rankings and revenue. And to be really honest, some of the campaigns, they flew, they might be sitting up in triple digits, some might not be, but looking at averages, that is an absolute, that's sitting in the steady performers category, as we can see here. Now, I just want to say though, that the link numbers are almost irrelevant, and we could have had 50 or 60 there as the average, but if they're not having an impact on bigger SEO KPIs around traffic, rankings and revenue, then ultimately I would rather have 17 high quality links versus 100 from, not very relevant and not very good domains and stuff like that, that aren't shifting the needle quite as much. And you don't always need loads of links to get real business results, right? I was in a conversation with Carrie, I think on Twitter a couple of weeks ago, and she said she's writing a case study around how 5 or 6 links have managed to shift the rankings of one of the clients' pages that she's working with. So that again proves that we don't always need hundreds of links to do a really, really good job with what we do. Now, I want to show you what literally 47 links across 5 campaigns with a perfect blend of technical SEO and keyword research did as well. So this client didn't have the biggest budget in the world as well. We weren't looking up at 20, 30 grand or anything like that. This is a real steady performer kind of campaign client. Oh, sorry. This is a real steady performer client that we've got. And you can see here, year on year, we've doubled the sessions. Now, we can take it one step further than that as well. And the client even come back to us in a testimonial and said, Aira have consistently provided great guidance on setting targets, communicating their progress, and ultimately helping us grow as a company. 47 links and the perfect blend of technical SEO helping this company grow. And that's what we want, right, with what we do. That's exactly what we want. So steady performers can ultimately make a big difference and impact the bottom line for businesses. So I want to talk about learning from steady performers, and essentially remember this, this really tricky email that I was on the receiving end of last February, again from that really nice client that I really would rather have not been in the position of receiving, but unfortunately, again, it's the truth and the reality of what we've got. We managed to turn it into this by December, and he comes back to us and says, great job, guys. You're finishing the year on a real high. Keep it going. And the reason that we managed to turn things around and get things back on track is that we have a number of processes in place that help us learn and develop and grow as a team. And first of all, the first one that I want to talk you through is the content evaluation matrix. And it comes from this guy here, which you've just heard of, and I've had to follow in the footsteps of, in terms of going and talking through this talking through this deck. But yeah, this has all come from Mark, and definitely do have a look on Content Hubble as well, because I've learned so much from him. And you can see these squiggles on the left-hand side here. We were sat in one of our brainstorming rooms in the old office, trying to work out successful campaigns and stuff like that. But ultimately, I'm going to translate these doodles for you, and this is what this matrix looks like. So we plot every quarter our campaigns on this matrix, and it looks at what was successful versus not successful in terms of links, and what was complex versus not complex in terms of the build, so the format, the interactivity, and stuff like that. Now, we spent a lot of time over the last couple of years focusing on just the wins, right? These are the rinse and repeat formats that we know work well, and we're able to spot trends in that as well. So we're able to work out that maps are great for link building. Just again, going back to that point around maps, here are some of the maps that we launched in such a short time frame because we knew they were dependable for links. Now, we didn't spend enough time looking at the fails, and we should have at that point as well. So here's probably, again, another fail just to walk you through. We looked at the most lucrative movie quotes at all times. So this campaign broke down just how much Tom Hanks was paid for saying, "My mama always said life was like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get." This campaign got 0 links when we first launched it. And you can just see here another handful of different quotes as well, and we were able to work out exactly what that actor was paid. But what should we have learned from these campaigns? What should we have gone back and noticed? We absolutely complicated things too much. That was an amazing visual. We were a little bit obsessed with trying to try a tree map, but it didn't work. It didn't get the point of the story across as easily as it should have. And not learning from these really can produce inconsistent digital PR results, right? If we don't go back and start to analyse what we've done. Whereas looking at steady performers can help produce consistent results. So if we take one of these steady performers campaigns for a travel client that we worked with, we've got the world's best cities to stay connected. It looked at multiple different data points. We had data that we managed to scrape. We had data from airports around, Wi-Fi and stuff like that. The index meant that because all of the different cities in here, we were able to go out to country-specific press. And this was a real, again, steady performer client. And we managed to spot a trend. So that campaign, I think, got 25 links. We launched 2 campaigns across 6 months. And then we were able to spot this trend. Campaigns with multiple data points and that are evergreen work really well for producing consistent results. And we've been able to take that through and forward. And that's something that's kind of ingrained in our creative process now. We like to use lots of different data points. We like to keep things as evergreen as possible. Now, looking at those steady performers and going back to that campaign that I just walked you through, the 6-month project that we did with that client helped us get a 95% increase in organic traffic and a 63% increase in organic revenue. Again, we're able to tie back our work that had, again, link building, the perfect balance of technical SEO as well, and we're having a real impact on businesses' bottom line. But there was nothing viral about any of the campaigns we did. So you should be reviewing your work every quarter to find out these trends, implement them, learn from them. And I've made a template, I'll share my deck with you after, that is going to help you kind of walk you through the matrix itself, pulling out some of the learnings, pulling out some of the trends so that you can take that forward into your creative process. So finally, in summary, I just want to circle back around then. The full picture, digital PR can be really hard. It can be, and it can be really painful. You can have some real huge wins followed by some big failures and everything in between with the steady performers. You are at some point going to experience a campaign fail or 2. It's absolutely going to happen. But there are a couple of things to keep in mind. So first of all, take the viral pressure off yourself and start talking about the steady performers and the fails. Number 2, realise that those steady performers can consistently impact weighty SEO KPIs in a positive way. And if you're able to do that and draw back what you're doing to the bottom line, then brilliant, you're doing great. And then finally, use the success matrix to review campaigns and catch trends early so that you're learning, growing, feed them into your creative process. So today, I really hope that I have been able to talk you through and show you the full picture. Thank you for listening to my ramblings. And Lisa, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much, Shannon. That was great. It's so refreshing to hear the honest kind of truth about sometimes it just doesn't work. And I totally agree. We're all guilty of this, of saying all the great things. And sometimes the real learnings is really in talking about what didn't work. Yeah. And I have never been in a new business pitch where I haven't been asked, okay, these are all great, but tell us one that didn't work. And, you know, that is really what defines us, what we do when things don't work, and how we bounce back up and how we think of new ideas. That's where the true creativity is. So thank you so much for sharing all of that. I think it is such a big value in hearing that. And again, like I just really admire everyone speaking today, and their honesty and their ability to share things that are also sometimes really difficult, and sharing the lessons, the hard lessons with people. That is really brave and really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I guess the aim as well, you know, I'm not calling anyone out. I don't want to do any of that and get into any difficult conversations in that front. I just want to make sure that for those coming into the industry, that we're actually talking about those steady performers, and that we're sharing the insights there, because that is what the day-to-day of our world looks like, right? Yeah. We absolutely love it when campaigns fly, and there's nothing better than like checking Google News and BuzzSumo and all of these things, and seeing all of this coverage come in. Like, I'm a PR at heart. I absolutely love all of that stuff and love getting involved. But the reality is, day to day, we do have steady performers. And if we can tie those steady performers and those fails into, you know, learning and growing and real business results, then hopefully again we can do better.
Yeah, brilliant. Have you got any questions, Lou?
Oh yes. Okay, so let's start off with from Jade. How would you recommend opening the conversation around digital PR with a client that hasn't previously done it, whilst communicating managing expectations of the likelihood of success?
Oh, good question. So we've definitely been in that position before, when, you know, we're recommending that a new client that we're working with is doing digital PR or link building for the first time, and they're often really excited about it. It's a new tactic. They want to get their brand out there. They know the impact of, you know, what the positive impact of what links and coverage can do for the brand. But in my opinion, there's a blend of excitement versus also nervousness, and they want to know everything that's going on, and you have to almost handhold through that creative process. You have to understand that there is going to be a bit of a protectiveness around the brand, and you do have to, you know, walk through every bit. And in terms of managing expectations, it's great to have, so in the sales process for us, for example, and often when we're talking to those new clients that haven't necessarily done digital PR, we will share the big, exciting, shiny ones, but then we might share a couple of campaigns that, you know, have got 20 to 25 links in a niche industry, and talk them through the processes there. I think the main thing is just communication. There kind of is no such thing as over communication, lots of reassurance, lots of, yes, we might be able to do this, but actually it's likely that, you know, three out of the 4 campaigns are going to do this and get, you know, 20 to 30 links instead of your 1 to 300.
Lovely. How do you respond to a client when a campaign just hasn't done well?
Oh yeah, that's not the best position to often find yourself in, and hopefully you guys aren't in that position, and we're not in that position too often, but we definitely have been in, you know, definitely have been in that position. I think the main thing is to be proactive. So I think, as you know, there are 2 things that happen after a campaign launch. Your campaign can go really well quite quickly. So within, you know, 24, 48, 72 hours, you do get that big influx of links and the client's really happy. But on the other side of that, you've got those more slow burner campaigns that can sometimes take 2 or 3 weeks to kind of get there. The main thing is to reassure them and be proactive, that if things are slower, jump on calls, talk them through the approach that you're taking, talk to them about the journalists that you're going after. And then if you're finding after a couple of weeks things aren't quite working, then go back and look at your data, look at pivoting the campaign. There's been a couple of large campaigns that we've done that have got multiple data sets in that potentially may, let's say, have a survey. We then hone in on the survey data, and we'll try and create a press release and a supporting graphic off the back of that. I think it's about kind of learning and like developing that relationship with the client, and try to push trust in that you've got it by proactivity.
Okay, that's great. How much time would you let it pass before pivoting your ideas?
Good question. So we'll often pivot quite a lot of our ideas, even if they are performing well, because we try and create kind of content banks for clients on client sites, and trying to create lots of evergreen content, so that, say, for example, if we have one campaign that's a slow burner, but we've had one that's really successful, we might start outreaching both at the same time to keep that consistent level of links coming in. I would probably say 2 to 3 weeks is when you know that something isn't quite going to take off. And because by then you've probably outreached to a good amount of people, some journalists might have given you some feedback. But the main thing is go by your gut feel as well. So if you then see a big story break the day after launch and the media is oversaturated, then you know that you're probably going to face a little bit of, troubled water, if you like.
And do you tweet about your failures?
I'll be tweeting this deck, yeah. I'm more than happy, definitely, to be talking about failures. I did a presentation at Brighton SEO last year as well that was all about kind of failures, and spoke through some failures there. I think we can probably speak more about them as an agency, but you know what, at the same time, we have to get the balance. We're all PRs, right? So we're all trying to protect our own brand, but we at the same time do need to learn and grow. So yeah, we including myself, can probably be better at it. But I'm trying to be, and we as an agency are trying to be as well.
Okay, and I think this will have to be our last question, I'm afraid, but what are your top 3 tips for anyone getting into link building and digital PR?
Be a huge sponge. So my first one is just read around the industry, go onto like Mark's website, Content Hubble, look at Pudding, look at all kinds of different data viz, go onto like Neoman, Verve, Rise, go onto all of their case study pages, digest all of these campaigns, look at the creative, look at the stories, just read everything you possibly can. That would be my first one. My second one is also talk to people as well. So for example, we have interns at Aira, like we're constantly saying like go and speak to different people in the industry, or we're quite an inclusive community, so go and speak to people at different agencies, ask them about their journey, ask them what they're up to and stuff like that. And finally, remember that there is no such thing as a bad idea. There is no such thing. And if you've got something that you want to put forward in a brainstorm, don't sit in the room. If you're sitting around a table, you're in a creative brainstorm and you're thinking, oh, the creative director's there, or the head of PR is there, or the senior content strategist is there, my idea isn't going to cut through. Don't think that. Like, leave that at the brainstorming door. Go in, chuck everything in the mix, because you never know, it might spark something in someone else.
Awesome. Again, we've got loads more other questions for you. So I think what we'll have to do is I'm just going to collect everything that I can, and we'll follow up with everyone and make sure all the questions are answered.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.